I'm pretty sure I have sealed the deal. Well, if I ever, if I ever thought there was a chance that I would get a deal with Devil Forge where I could promote their furnaces, that is done with this video. Not a single chance. You know, I give grief to those guys, call them the Lithuanians and whatever, from Lithuania. But you know what, in fairness to them, it's easy to pick on the big guy. I mean, they own the market. There's no question about it. And, you know, they have done more probably to enable people to get into metal casting and to foundry work than anybody else that I can think of. So hats off to you guys for doing that, but I'm still going to pick on you because I'm the little guy. So I'm doing this in collaboration with my my good friend Julian HG over at Julian HG. If you don't know Julian, he got a great channel. You should go check him out. I'm going to put a link to a video he just published on the making of this badge. You really need to go check it out. You know, I asked Julian, I said, can you help me with this one simple little thing, right? He turned it into, well, Perry didn't know how to 3D model, if you look. And then he redesigned the whole thing to be this, which I actually absolutely love. Brilliant design. Some of the little things that are nice about this, right? The radius to fit on my furnace. The fact that it's hollow, I don't have to worry about shrinkage. He designed in like holes for being able to pull it out. So he did a great job. Go check out his video again. It's up there on the corner. So let's get started with the voiceover. So we can do two things. One, we can dispel any disparaging rumors that Julian may have caused about my modeling skills. And we can get this thing cast. Notice I didn't say casted. Cast. I just show you two things. First of all, this is why it prompted me to talk to Julian. But second of all, I actually do have 3D modeling skills. I'm not a complete loser. But that was the plaque I originally designed. It very much mimics the Devil Forge plaque. Problem is it's flat. And if you put this furnace in there with it, you see there's a big gap here on the edges. And I don't think you can roll or curve aluminum. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just cast a curved one like this, right? And I modeled up a curved one. Well, the problem comes in the drafting of the letters behind. And Julian kind of alluded to this as well. So this is a direction this wants to move, right? It wants to move straight out of the sand if I were to cast it. And if I put a line in there that kind of indicates that direction and look in here inside the letters, you can see here the problem. See the problem right there? The letters, that would be straight up and down. I still have to draft it even further, and every character is different. So this would have really been a really tough manual process to draft each one of those individually. So, okay, let's go ahead. Let's get into the actual casting. All right, as I sit here doing this voiceover, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do this edit. I was thinking about showing everything, but then I think, maybe I'll just skip stuff that you've seen a million times. Here's what's interesting about this pour is we're going to pour it face up in the cope. Normally people would pour this thing face down in the drag. It's probably the easiest way to ram it and probably the easiest way to pour it. But the nice thing about pouring up in the cope is and face up is I don't have to worry about loose sand affecting the face of my image, which is kind of a nice deal. So we're just going to ram this thing up. This is actually in the cope right now. I'm going to put some sand underneath the mold to support it because it flexes when I ram this thing up, and I wanted to try to keep it as flat as I can. I probably should have put some more sand underneath there because it still flexed a little bit. And we're ramming what's called a false cope. A false cope basically is we're going to ram this thing up, and we're just using it to really, we're just using it to get the drag rammed up. We're going to tear this thing apart and re-ram it once I have the drag done. All right, I've got my false cope rammed up now. Got the table all cleaned up so I can flip it over. And there's the support I had underneath the thing. Now comes the process of sort of getting the mold ready for the drag. What we're going to end up doing here is a process called coping down. We're going to cut down to the cope line, the parting line. Maybe it's parting down, I don't know. But basically what you see me doing with the spoon there is cutting an edge so that when I ram the drag, it will actually build in the support mechanism underneath that part of the pattern. This would have been really, really nice had I had a wider flask, a wider box to cast this in, because I've only got about ½ inch, 12 millimeters or so of space here between the part and the box. And it's really just not enough to get enough sand support in there. I wanted a nice sort of, I call it a diagonal line. I don't know what you call it. I wanted an angle so that I could get down to the part, and I'd also have a nice release mechanism for the cope when or for the drag actually when I ram it up here. So I'm kind of cutting it down at an angle. I don't know if you can really tell that, but that's kind of what I'm doing there. And I'm pressing it down in there, trying to get it tight in there and hard. That was the other problem with having it be such a small space. It was hard to get it rammed in there and get a nice firm surface to ram against. And that's one of the things as you're doing these false copes, they need to be hard enough that they're not going to deform when you do the drag. All right, so we've got the false cope is all done. We're ready to go ahead and start ramming up our drag. And this would be just exactly how you would ram up a drag as if you were putting the pattern on the table, right, at this point. Put a lot of parting compound in here because I want this thing to come out of the mold cleanly. And then go ahead and lay in our runner and spin trap as well. And I want to kind of try to position it in the right place for the gate that I'm going to put on there. You'll also see in the end, it didn't work out that way. That's all right. It worked out. Everything worked out in the end. And we'll just riddle in some more sand and fill in the drag as if we were doing a normal pattern here. Okay, we've got everything rammed up, cleaned up. Not really cleaned up, but we're going to go ahead and pull this false cope off and ram it up. And you might be wondering, why in the world would you do a false cope? There's the support mechanism that's built. That's the big reason we do it. But why not just ram up everything and just use it, right? Well, you'll see here in a second that the reason we don't do that is I don't have a sprue rammed in there yet. I don't have the vent in the air for my surge trap or spin trap. I don't have the extra upper half of the spin trap in. And that stuff would be really hard to do in a false cope because you've got it upside down and I've got things coming out of the top of the surface. So it's a big reason why you don't do it. And it only takes actually a couple of minutes to do a false cope. I think when I looked at the video here, I'm like at 2.5 minutes to do the false cope. So, and that was from start to finish. So it's really not that big a deal to go ahead and just ram one up and then tear it apart and do it again. And underneath this pattern now, of course, is a nice core that we've rammed up when we rammed up the drag. So now we're going to go ahead and put the cope back on the flask here, and we'll go ahead and start ramming it up. All right, here's here's my spin trap and a gate that's got to go in there, and lastly the sprue. There, to get it in there. All right, and a lot of parting compound. This part is hard to cast. when Julian made this thing, I wouldn't normally, Julian, I love you, man, but man, those letters and all those lines were deep, and it was hard to get, it was tough to get that stuff to release. I would have probably made the pattern a little bit shallower, easier to release, but you know what, it turned out okay. You'll see in the end, it actually turned out quite well, but man, it was tough. So normal stuff here, we're going to riddle sand in and cover everything up with a nice fine layer of sand. No big clumps to have to worry about, breaking down while we're ramming. Then we'll just go ahead and fill the rest of the mold, just like you would normally do. I probably would have been smart here to press more sand down with my fingers around the edge of that pattern, because I have the same problem now. There's just not a lot of space there, and it's hard to get it to ram in there tight because it's such a tight space. With the box filled in, we can go ahead and start ramming it up. Like I said, I should have probably pressed a little bit tighter in this area that I'm in right now, but it turned out, it turned out okay. All right, we're all struck off here, and we're going to go ahead and cut the pouring basin in now. If you're new to my channel and you don't know what the pouring basin is, you can go back and look at my Learning to Cast series. I have a video specifically on the pouring basin and why it's important and why we use it. I'll also talk about how to actually do one. All right, basin's all cut. Now let's go ahead and open this thing up and see, there's why I didn't need the the part pulling holes, whatever. The things that Julian put in the backside of this thing so I could pull the pattern out. It's stuck in the cope, which made it actually quite nice for getting it off the rest of the mold. It released pretty clean. A couple of small little issues. Some of the definition in the angel got lost, but for the most part, it came out pretty darn clean, so I'm happy with it. You see me blowing the molds out. I use a lot of air, It's very low pressure. I don't want to tear up the mold, but I want to get rid of any loose sand that's in there. All right, so nice thing about what happened here is I can tap this guy to the side and loosen it up a little bit, and I don't have to worry about breaking any of that fine detail that was up in the that's on the face of this pattern. That's always a concern for me when I go to tap things, and I'm going to just move it sideways and break it off. And it really was stuck down well here. I have to tap it a number of times to get it to loosen up. There we go. You can see that core rammed up really well. We have the edges, the curved edges that are going to go against the curve of the furnace are there. Really nice core came out. Okay, we'll open it up again, blow it out one more time, just to get rid of any of the loose sand that might have fallen when we shut the mold up the first time. And we should be ready to pour now. Get the crucible down nice and close. Nice, easy, gentle pour into the basin. Keep that sprue full. And there we go, we're done. Okay, it's been a couple minutes. Let's open it up and see what we got. Good sign, good sign. Burnt sand everywhere. Whew, good. Got a completely filled pattern, filled mold here. Just check the corners and just make sure that it actually did fill okay in there. I think it did. And I forgot to shoot it coming out of the sand, but you can still see sand stuck in it. And I've taken it in. I've actually washed it off with some water, got all the sand off of it and out of it. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty clean. Surface is pretty nice. Nice thing about that pouring with the face up is I don't have any holes in the top. You can see where my gate was a little short there. And here it is. I sanded it smooth. I used, I think I only went 400 grit sandpaper. Got to drill out the holes that Julian put in there for me, the little indicators he put in. And there they are drilled out. But the screws still don't go through because that's only the tapping size. I need to use that as a guide on the furnace. But first I got to get the furnace over to the table. So take the lid off of it. Take the burner out. And then stand there and think about how heavy this thing is. And try to break my neck. Oh. Ugh! Get it up there. Oh, got it up there. Man, that thing is heavy. Okay, so I just got tap size holes drilled in the plaque. So I'm going to just put it on there. I'm going to mark it with a drill bit. And then we will punch it and I'll drill it in for tap size. I'm only going to do one hole at first just to get the thing to stay on there so I can do the other holes later. Trying to drill in at the same angle that the screw is really going to go through, not perpendicular to the face, but sort of, well, at an angle, because that's where the screw is going to go. I'm going to hand tap these because I am too big a chicken to put it in my drill and just drive it in. Nothing worse than having a broken off tap in a hole. Don't want that. We'll get that one screw in. This camera had trouble focusing for some reason all of a sudden. I'm not sure what was up. I'll go ahead and tighten it down, and then we can mark another screw hole with it tightened down. The nice thing about the shape is it actually goes on there square. And here we go. We got it on. All the screws are in. And I tell you what, I think it looks awesome. All right, so there you go. There is no endorsement deal in my future. I can feel it. That's all right. I have a really cool looking badge on my furnace that I absolutely love. Julian, bud, thank you very much. I love it. If you guys haven't been over to Julian's channel yet, it's Julian HG. Go check his stuff out. Insanely talented guy. Fun to watch. Just a good all-around good guy. He was a blessing to me in this whole thing. Believe me, I could not have done this without him. So as we finish it up, as always, two things. Be a blessing to somebody. Give an encouraging word, say something nice to them, help them out. Go out of your way to be a blessing to somebody. It will make you feel better and it will help them as well. And as always, you guys have a great day.